You think that we are irredeemably racist?
Yeah, I do. The success of Britain is literally based on racism.
The Chinese were massacring Chinese and other races long before they'd ever met a white person. The genocide in Rwanda was black on black. Where's the racism in that?
In this video, Munroe Bergdorf, who is a transgender race activist, debates racism with British interviewer Andrew Neil. Bergdorf has said that, quote, "The white race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on Earth." However, Andrew Neil destroys this argument, exposing it for its blatant racism and hypocrisy. Check it out.
We've only just really started talking about modern day racism. When we talk about racism, we're always, either talking, sorry to bring up what you talked about, but we're either comparing to America, which is wholly different. The history is very different. We celebrate the empire here, but the empire has a horrible history for people of colour. But we have a multicultural society. So there's this imbalance, and especially when it comes to education, the whole system needs to change.
But let me look at education. Let's look at the figures on education. 33% of white kids go to university or further education. 37% of black kids go to university or further education. 67% of Indian kids go to university or further education. 76% of Chinese kids go to university or further education. Where's the racism in that?
I'm talking about how people's history and how people's
But I'm talking about now and the chances of young
but
children.
I'm not talking about their...
But what's wrong with these figures?
I'm about to tell you. I'm not talking about their academic performance. I'm talking about how we are taught about each other. If black kids aren't being taught about their histories, if we're being taught, that white history is paramount, that's essentially feeding into a white supremacist narrative. We can't be teaching kids that white is the default, that white people's history is the sole history of this country. We need to be taught about black contributions and other contributions of other cultures within society.
But for most people, what racism is and what they'd like to improve is the chances of people getting on regardless of the colour of your skin.
That's not just racism, though. I'm talking about the mental health.
But it's still quite an important thing, and these figures would suggest that as a country we're doing reasonably well.
No, that's facts and figures.
But you think, facts and figures are important, but you think
I think it goes deeper
that we are irredeemably racist, don't you?
What, this society?
Quite
yeah,
true,
I do. Unfortunately, I do. I think that the success of Britain is literally based on racism.
And do you think we're irredeemably sexist as well?
100%.
But if you take something like gender,
I think
we are making advances in terms of gender pay.
All men smashing down the patriarchy, we are going to be on that page. So I think, yes,
but we can make progress.
I think we can make progress and we can combat it.
But if it's irredeemable, you can't make progress.
I mean, it's fighting human nature, and humans are flawed.
Humans are flawed, but you seem to think that white people are uniquely evil.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that individual people are unique.
Well,
I'm talking about society.
No. You said whites are the most violent and oppressive people.
Well, yeah.
That's what you said in your film.
And if you're going to go back
so that
to
would seem to me that
statistics point that out too.
Really? Well,
yes.
The Chinese were massacring Chinese and other races long before they'd ever met a white person. Attila the Hun wasn't white. It's the same in the subcontinent if you go back hundreds of years as well. The genocide in Rwanda was black on black. So is the Congo, which is the rape capital of the world. These things have got nothing to do with white people.
Okay, and I feel like this situation where I'm sat on a couch trying to justify my feelings towards racism and trying to justify why we're in this situation with the findings of the government. Facts and figures of people going to university is not reflective of the mental health of people of colour. It's not reflective of how people of colour are taught about their own histories, taught about the progress and where we come from. That is not reflective, and that is not indicative that what you've got in front of you, that's not indicative of a fair state of affairs within this society.
Rather than responding to Andrew Neil's valid points, Bergdorf continued to play the victim. Her argument that white people are the most violent race didn't quite hold up when Neil provided a list of conflicts entirely separate from white people. She could have provided an argument to the contrary, but didn't, and only spoke about her feelings as the data simply isn't on her side.
You know, if we're going to be taught things, we ought to be taught everything.
Yes.
And one of the things we ought to be taught are what those figures actually show.
But if you take the senior civil service
Sorry,
or
sorry,
senior
what was the
business,
question before?
Well, I wasn't really asking you a question. I was just saying if you believe that things should be taught,
Yes.
then the figures that have come out here, which didn't demonstrate what we thought they might demonstrate, are also something that people ought to understand. In other words, you know, if there are black people there saying, I've no hope of going to university, well, no, go to the figures and find out that actually your chances of going to university are not as good as an Indian kid, but they're better than a white kid.
I don't think that you're looking at the details. I don't think that you're looking at what a person of colour experiences in that time of going to school and going to university. Yes, they may go to university, but what is their experience within that school structure? What is their experience within the education system? My self-worth and my low self-worth by the time that I got to university was largely because of my experience in the education system and how my well-being was put to a side and overlooked in favour of the white students. And my histories and my role models just weren't there. My sex education was not there. My looking into gender was not there. Everything that would be of empowering, a source of empowerment for myself was not there. I did not feel supported with the education system. Yes, I went to university too, but I really did not benefit from my high school experience.
Can anything be done?
Yes, and it did sound quite futile on the film, but I do feel like we all need to be on the same page in how we combat this. And I don't feel like white people should be so defensive when it comes to talking about racism. It is a very tough situation and tough subject for everybody to talk about. But really, we need to just bear in mind that it doesn't affect white people.
But the answer is that white people have to do things.
Yes.
It's not simply... And
I think that's what the problem is, really.
But you don't have to be, as a white person, you might not be violent or oppressive. You might just be ignorant.
Yeah.
And actually, there were the figures you quoted there, but if you look at the senior echelons of business or the civil service, there's gross underrepresentation of black people. The question is, are white people at the top of those organisations every day saying, what are we doing about it? But unless they are, you won't combat it.
We're going to have to...
But they're not so futile about it. And I think that's why so many black people feel so futile about it. And I don't think that... We could, but it's a very big could.
Yep. Except 85% of whites in this country feel they belong to Britain. 84% of Asians. 81% of black people. It's not clear that non-white people in this country feel the way you do.
I do feel like I'm part of Britain. I do.
You do?
Yeah, of course I do.
Despite it being irredeemably racist?
Of course. I mean, there's Black Britain, and there's black culture within cultures. My Britain is very different to what a white person would have experienced. It doesn't mean that I don't love this country for the opportunities that it's given me. I feel very fortunate in some ways to live in Britain. But I'm also not a fan of the insidious culture that we have here, that we can't talk about racism and that we don't understand what racism is.
We've talked about tonight on network television. Munroe, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching this debate on the Pandrio channel. I really hope you enjoyed it. Click subscribe to watch more, or click the video on screen to watch another debate. See you later, and have a great day.